Greetings everyone, hope you're all safe and well. Before I jump into today's topic, I just want to point out that I was sent a post regarding one of the other two videos that I uploaded recently regarding the governing body, and the commenter pointed out to me that Jeffrey Jackson's statement was, and I quote, it would seem presumptuous for us to say that we're the spokesman, whereas I said that he said it would be presumptuous if the governing body thought that they were the only spokesman on earth. So I just want to clear that up, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. However, the reality is that whether or not he said it would seem or it would be, the governing body have stated in numerous watchtowers, videos, talks, assemblies, publications, that they are the spokesperson or the only channel on earth that represents God or is being used by God. So nobody can deny that. Anyway, nevertheless, thank you for bringing that to my attention. So without further ado, let's move on to today's topic, which is dealing with or identifying systemic issues within the Jehovah's Witnesses organisation. And systemic issues are always viewed in a negative light, invariably, because they begin with certain maladaptive behaviours that prevent positive adjustments and change for the benefit of either an individual or a group of people. And so I think it's fair to say that as an organisation, there are many systemic issues within Jehovah's Witnesses, too many to talk about on here today. Maybe I could split them up into different videos. But the maladaptive behaviour, we see things like at least 3 points. We see avoidance, withdrawal, and passive-aggressive behaviours, especially on a local level in the congregations. But I think for me, I wanted to talk about this situation because I was watching a YouTube video the other night by a gentleman who was being interviewed actually by the name of Stephen Unthank. And this video was filmed in 2000. This interview that he did with a lady called Lara Caput was done in 2018, and it was against the backdrop of the Australian Royal Commission. And he and Lara created an activism movement entitled Say Sorry. And that's what the interview was about. And I will put the link in the description box after this interview, where you can actually view that video. And he was talking about how the governing body never ever say sorry for the heinous crimes of child sexual abuse. And he was actually a victim. And when you look at this video, it is just terrible. It's shocking what happened to him. Very high-ranking watchtower member sexually abused him in a Kingdom Hall, which is just like unbelievable. But anyway, that's his story, and you can have a view of that. But that's a typical example. The statement, just saying sorry. This organisation never ever say sorry, even for the most disgusting things that they're guilty of. And it is avoidance. It's avoidance at all costs, because these people display narcissistic and sociopathic traits. They do not want to say sorry because it makes them look weak. Whereas if they did say sorry for everything that's happened, mostly when we talk about the child sexual abuse that has been exposed since the Australian Royal Commission and other places in the world where they've done commissions, we'd probably be able to give them a bit more respect, would we not? But they avoid it at all costs. And so from that 2018 interview that was done on YouTube to the latest AGM for Jehovah's Witnesses, they're still staunch in their attitudes and ways, because you get people like Jeffrey Winder at the at the annual general meeting, where he says the governing body don't need to feel embarrassed, nor do we need to apologise, or is an apology needed when we err in doctrinal matters. Well, that's very well for you to say, Jeffrey, but what about erring in your refusal to apologise to the thousands and thousands of child sexual abuse victims within this organisation? And as far as I'm concerned, the longer the gap is to say sorry, the more people are going to wake up and see you and other governing body members and this organisation for what it really is. That is a systemic issue in its own right. The fact that you from the top, that's how you train your elders, not to say sorry, not to be humble, not to take responsibility when you have erred or when you have committed wrongs. It's a decent human virtue to be able to admit when you're wrong and take responsibility for your part, but you don't. And we know why, because you're not backed by God. You're not backed by his son. You're a corporation masquerading as a religion, and you still have 8.6 million people under your hypnosis, because that's what it is. And when you have maladaptive behaviours like avoidance from the top, in not saying sorry or apologising for anything now, never mind the big issue of the day, which is child sexual abuse, but you filter that down. That's how your elders are trained. And so this is why we see systemic issues on a local congregational level too, because of the attitude that you instill into the body of elders in different congregations all over the world. And while there are still, some nice people, this isn't lumping Jehovah's Witnesses all into one group. I know some beautiful and decent people in this organisation, but they are as rare as hen's teeth, as they say. The majority of it is just a horrible place to be in. And I think it's safe for me to say, after being a Jehovah's Witness for 35 years, that I always knew that there was something wrong. I was always thinking, things are just not right. And in the Kingdom Hall, there was always this heaviness, this static that didn't feel good. And now I know why. Because it's not backed by God. Certainly not the Creator. It's backed by a God, but it's not Jesus or his Father. So then we have to understand why there is an avoidance. With my own personal experience and with what we went through as a family and with what my son went through last year, there was an avoidance on the elders' part to take responsibility for all the trouble that they'd caused my son and the heartache and mental torture that they'd caused us. There was just no love, and there is no love. Because if there was genuine love amongst people in the organisation and in the local congregations, they wouldn't behave the way that they behave. It's as simple as that. They wouldn't behave the way that they behave. And so when you, an honest-hearted person, a truth seeker, one who tries to align themselves with Christian values and principles, if you're a Christian, I am a born-again Christian, and I love Jesus and I love his Father. But when you see people who are supposed to be of the same mind and the same heart behaving in the most atrocious manner, and you expose it for what it is, the deflection and the avoidance and the denial of their behaviour is just, it's quite disturbing, because a lot of these people in the organisation that behave like this are in positions of responsibility, and they display narcissistic and sociopathic traits. It's very, very disturbing. And that's why you have the withdrawal of people in the congregations, like myself, my husband, my son. We start withdrawing as innocent people that have been attacked, but then they withdraw in a very negative way because they don't want a bar of you standing up to them. You're viewed as a troublemaker or creating divisions, or whatever you want to call it, because you speak up. I mean, Jesus was accused of the same thing, wasn't he? He was accused of being a troublemaker and causing divisions. So it just reveals on a local level why the congregations are absolutely embedded with negative attitudes and behaviours. And that's why a lot of people start questioning these things, because it comes from the top. Can you imagine Jeffrey Winder saying at the AGM, brothers and sisters and everybody who's watching worldwide, we just want to take this opportunity to say how deeply sorry we are for all the trouble that's been caused in the organisation, and we are going to put it right, and we welcome your suggestions, and we welcome your input, and we welcome your comments so that we can do better. But they don't do better, they become more bitter. They are bitter, not better. And so any thinking person, people that are waking up, people that have woken up, they see this even more clearly than they ever had when they were under the hypnosis. And make no mistake about it, from being under hypnosis to waking up, that is no mean feat. There's a lot involved in that process. And so what I want to say is that, please, if you're still in the organisation and watching this, and you're still in the congregations, and you know that there's something that's not right, or you're being mistreated, and the response is, oh, well, we're all imperfect, we have to move on and forgive and move on. I mean, how many times have we heard that old chestnut? Really? Right? It's such a big go-to in the organisation when people stuff up. Oh, we're imperfect, you have to forgive and forget. Yeah, I'll forgive and forget when you're genuinely sorry and you take accountability and responsibility for your behaviour and the hurt and the attitudes that you display. Yeah, then we're in business. But the fact that this organisation from the top down just goes along and makes everything up. They're just, the governing body are just very, very, they're wanting you, if you're still in, they're wanting you to look up to them in awe. But they're just men. They're just men who are causing a lot of trouble, who are causing a lot of hurt. And in many, many instances, people who, the very worst case scenario, go out and commit suicide. And there was actually a study on mental health illness within Jehovah's Witnesses, and it was a study that was conducted in Western Australia. And they were saying that it's the religion, when you're looking at religions per se, that has the highest suicide rate in this country. I mean, what does that tell you? It's one of the highest religions that actually, because of the attitudes and the maladaptive behaviours that they foster, and that they endorse, and I will say that, regardless of what they put in. And see, here's the thing, regardless of what they put in the magazines about being loving and kind and forgiving and how we should be this and how we should be that, and then the behaviours actually mirror the opposite to all of that. It's almost like the governing body want anarchy within the congregations. They're putting out all this, seemingly positive and right content, how we should be living. But in the behaviours, in the local congregations worldwide, it's a completely different story altogether. And that's why thousands are leaving. And this governing body will not address the systemic issues like avoidance, like withdrawal, like the passive aggressiveness. That's another massive systemic issue, the passive aggressiveness. I've experienced that throughout my whole time being in this organisation, where people want to appear like they're okay. But if they have a problem with you, they'll attack you underhandedly so nobody else sees it. I can pick those people out a mile. It's an ugly, ugly trait to have. And they know what they're doing too when they do that. They know what they're doing, which is even more disturbing. And so when you have these three, traits, and I could go on and on and on and on, but when you have these three behaviours that exist within this organisation, the avoidance, the withdrawal, the passive aggressiveness, it's just a recipe. It's a recipe for anarchy. And just the fact that, again, I quote Geoffrey Winder saying, we don't have to apologise when we err in doctrinal matters. Well, how about apologising for all the hurt and pain that you allow your elders at local level to cause and dump on innocent people that are trying to be Christians and are trying to live good lives, and that just happen to have a voice and speak up when they see things aren't right? How about you retraining your elders? Because for those that don't know about Jehovah's Witnesses, they have elders training schools. Elders training schools. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in those training schools. What do the governing body teach the elders? What do they teach them? Because whatever they're teaching them, it's not working. Whatever you're teaching your elders at your elders training schools, governing body members, it's not working. And more of us are going to be speaking out about what happens congregationally, never mind what happens at Warwick or in between, Bethel, the middleman. You look at the local congregation members, and if they don't get anything sorted out in terms of problems and hurt and horrendous things being done, and then people like me, and I can tell you, I took it to Sydney Bethel, everything that was going on in this organisation, well, in the congregation at Kalanga, North Brisbane, where I was based. They don't want a bar of it. They just refer you back to your local elders. And then you take it to Warwick, head office, you want to speak to a governing body member. No, I'm afraid, ma'am, they're busy. You need to take it back to Bethel in Sydney. You know, you're not going to get a chance, are you? You're not going to get anywhere. And that's how this organisation is structured. Passing the baton, passing it back up, passing it down again. And you're stuck in the middle. And you have had all this disgusting treatment and vitriolic diatribe just dumped on you for speaking out for somebody else's behaviour. That's essentially what happens. But you see, the longer they go on and not say sorry, and don't get me wrong, I've checked jw.org, I've checked their publications since the Australian Royal Commission. Well, Geoffrey Winder just proves that they don't have to say sorry for anything, really, because part of their doctrines, their doctrinal matters, you know, if they claim that they're spirit inspired, which they're absolutely not, why isn't our Father saying to them, you need to do a massive upheaval of your policies on allowing local members of the congregation to speak out and be heard, instead of quashing and thwarting any attempt for change in the local congregations? And that's why the systemic issues regarding behaviours that I've mentioned will always exist, and people will be leaving. More and more people will be leaving because the governing body, you governing body members, you do not care one iota about your congregation members in the congregations all over the world. You don't care. It's very obvious that you don't care. No matter what you put on your jw.org, no matter what you put in your Watchtower study articles, you are having a laugh at everybody else's expense because they're just words. Words need to be backed up by actions, governing body members. When you put in your Watchtower doctrines, you know, in your wording, if somebody's upset you, if a brother or sister has offended you, you know, you should go and say sorry and da-da-da and rah-de-rah, and you go on and on and on with your nonsense. But then why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you setting the example? You don't, because you openly say you don't need to apologise. So what signal or green light are you sending to elders and other people for that matter? You just want everybody to say, oh, well, he's or she's imperfect, you know, we have to forgive and move on. And nothing systemically ever gets sorted out. And that's why I believe you need to have auditors, if you really, really care and you care to listen to people like me and suggestions that could be beneficial, that could actually present positive adjustments and change for the benefit of congregation members. You should be sending auditors in every 3 months to question each member of each congregation, and then you'll get a snapshot or a window of what's actually happening. But then you're not going to do that because you don't care. You don't care. My cat has more care and love than all 9 of you put together. Because you do avoid, you are passive aggressive, and you withdraw when you're being called out. It's very, very hard for anybody. I can tell you from personal experience, it's very hard to try and contact a governing body member. They are protected like Fort Knox, seriously. So I'm sure many of you can identify with these maladaptive behaviours in each of your congregations, and also that everything that goes along with those 3 points that I've discussed, the avoidance, the withdrawal, the passive aggressiveness, you know, the thing that underpins all of that is control. It's coercive control. The fear, the obligation, the guilt, when you throw that in of each person, and then you have these things in the mix: avoidance, withdrawal and passive aggressiveness from the people that should be looking after the flock. It's a huge mess that is just left. It's just left to its own devices. There's no care, there's no love. I mean, think about this for you thinking Christians, brothers and sisters out there. How would our Lord feel? I actually asked the Kalanga congregation a question about their behaviour when I emailed them my resignation I said, how do you think you believe that Jesus is the head of the congregation? How do you think he feels when he sees all of this nasty behaviour and unloving attitude in this congregation? How would you be described in one of the 7 congregations in Revelation? Wow, it doesn't even bear thinking about, does it? And yet the congregation that I was in just is representative for the congregations all over the world. There's only a handful of really nice people in each congregation, and I hope you can get out and you can wake up before the organisation goes down. Thank you for listening, and look out for more videos, and keep safe, keep well, and show love to one another, please. Thank you.